So, you want to build a new deck because you were already bored from the 1 month Constellar Mayakashi format, even if Tenyi is pretty old. And this new mini box has a lot of new decks with busted skills. We have Shiranui, we have Photons, but ideally, for you, we have Tachyon. And I'm here for you to help you play this based and, as it turns out, tier 0 deck. Why would you play Tachyon? It's of course tier 0 at the moment. People think it will not be as soon as days go by because people are figuring Shiranui a bit more. But let's be honest, Tachyon is crazy. It's also really good going second. I mean, it's tier 0, it should be good going second, but it's even if it gets its counter trap banned, it will be good going second, which is always a good thing. And it's cheap. The deck, unironically, needs 3 copies of Nebula from your. You need to go into this mini box 3 times, and you need the Galaxy package cards and some other UR extra deck options and SR options, but we assume you have the majority of those, even if popular options were selection box exclusives at one time. Beginning with the deck and its core, we're starting with what is, in my opinion, the main monster you will see this deck, the card that makes this deck playable in its vast majority, Nebula Dragon, which is a light level 8 dragon. All dragons in this deck are light dark, level 8 or level 4, by the way. These are the cards you can play. And this card is basically a 1-card rank 8. You can reveal itself alongside another light or dark dragon, including itself. You can reveal a Nebula with Nebula. And you summon them both to the field in defense position, but you negate their effects. Also, you cannot special summon monsters except light and or dark dragons after these monsters have been summoned. It also negates the effect, as I said. This is a crazy card because you are also gonna have fodder with it, and it's a 1-card basically Galaxy package, which is an immediate threat on the board. It also allows for greater extension turn 1. It also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it and target 1 level 4 dragon from your graveyard and add it to your hand. This isn't really used in current builds because the best target is Cipher, and you would rather banish Cipher to grab a level 8. It can grab another card that's being played right now, but it's a niche situation. Still, this card is an absolutely must 3 of in standard builds. FTK builds can play too, but we will get to the FTK build at the end. I spoiled it, however. And an important thing is this card is searchable with a skill. We will discuss the skill after we talk about the cards. The next main deck monster card is Galactic Spiral Dragon. He's also a 3 of, and he's a reward card, was a reward card from Missile's event, not effect. This card is crazy. Basically, if it's in your hand or graveyard and you control 2 light and or dark dragons, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Guess what? This card will never get banished like that. Almost never, because you will overlay it or get it back to your hand with your skill. It's a free extender, basically both from your hand and from your graveyard. You may think that the deck relies a lot on it and it makes the deck with good DD Crow, but that is not the case. This deck doesn't really care about DD Crow. If they DD Crow this, fine. And even if your hand loses to that, your Cipher Church can play around it. It's also the best fodder for Cipher's effect. You send this, grab the 8 you miss, which can be Schwarzschild, can be Nebula. It can even be Parsec Dragon if you want to. But this is the best fodder because it comes back. You can also even search itself, like you can pitch itself, search itself. Its second effect is the ability to make all monsters you control into level 8s. Usually you're gonna make Cipher a level 8, and that is a really good effect because you want to ideally bounce a level 8 monster to summon with Nebula, and you make Cipher level 8, you overlay with this and Cipher, or with Cipher and another monster, you bounce a third monster, and you get to exist monsters on the field. This is an absolutely must have 3 of because this is not searchable with a skill because it's a Dark Dragon. The next Dark Dragon is Sword Shield Limit Dragon. This card has 2000 attack and 0 defense, but that's meaningless. You can basically, if your opponent controls a monster with 2000 or more attack, you can special summon this for free as many times as you want. This is a free summon going second in most of the time. It's also really good against Constellars because a common disruption they have is their exist monster, Constellar Pleiades, and this card just says, I don't care about your Constellar Pleiades. If you open 2 of these on your hand going second, it's crazy because you're just threatening Dingirsu on your first summon. Without your normal summon, I'm sorry. And Dingirsu is a hell of a monster. It's also not dead going first because it's a level 8 you can reveal with your skill. You reveal it, you add the card you want, and then you ideally set this because you cannot summon it going first. Also, if you're going second, keep in mind that the skill's second effect returns a card to your hand to search. You can return this card and then summon it back. It's a must 3 of, it's a really good card, applies a lot of pressure going second, and is one of the main reasons this deck can play going second. The next is the next monster that we consider core is what most people would think is the best card of the deck in terms of main deck, and it is, but due to your skill you don't need 3 copies of it. Otherwise you would. It's Starly Schaefered. Most people know this card from Dragon Link because this card used to be a 1 card full combo in Dragon Link, but I'll pick a band. It's your best normal summon, your best search target for the skill. You basically can send any dragon from your hand and /or field to the graveyard and add 1 dragon whose level equals the levels of dragons you send. You usually send an 8 to grab an 8, but this can add a 4 by sending itself. It can add itself by sending itself, and you may ask, why would you do this? You may want to use its second effect that we will get into. Also, it can add Radius the Half Moon Dragon, which is a level 4 being played in the mirror match. We will discuss about it. So people in the beginning were playing 2, now we have settled on 1 because we want more room for non-engine, and you will search this. And we also figured out that the second effect, which is to banish it from the graveyard and target 1 level 8 dark or light dragon in your graveyard and add it to your hand, is a really good effect, but it's not needed at multiple copies because the deck is already really good. And since we want to draw more non-engine for the mirror match, we have settled on playing 1. However, if you have extra copies, don't feel sad. It's a good card to play 2 of. Not optimal in my opinion, but it's still good. The next monster is Parsec the Interstellar Dragon. It's basically a card that says if you control a level 8 monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. That's its effect. It's basically a level 8 to have for the skill. It's also searchable with your skill in case you don't want to summon Cipher. Basically, this is useful when you have only 1 level 8 and you basically are adding this, set the 8, normal summon this, and just make an Xyz and set your back rows. You can do the same thing with Nebula, however, and get the counter trap too. Like you add Nebula instead and get this. Parsec is also really good for follow-up options, as a follow-up option, because he's an 8 summon. Like sometimes your field will be clogged and you cannot make Cipher an 8, so Parsec is a good option to have. It's also an 8 for the skill, and it's searchable with the skill. Radius, the Half Moon Dragon, is the final main deck monster you're gonna see at the moment. I've written shield incorrectly, I just saw that. It's basically a tech for the mirror match. If your opponent controls an Xyz, you can special summon this card and its level becomes 8. And this is not once per turn, it's an inherent summon, you can do it as many times as you want. This is really good in the mirror match because it's a 4th copy of Var Shield, it's searchable with your skill, because it's a light level 4 dragon. And you can also recur it with your Nebula. So keep that in mind, you may want to detach this or Nebula Dragon from your Xyz monsters to get him into the to get one of them into the graveyard so you can get back the Moon Dragon. But that's the issue. This card is good only if you're going second in the mirror match, but it's not good against decks that don't summon Xyz monsters. And what to do with you? And otherwise it's a dead hand. You can theoretically send itself and Cipher to grab an 8, but that's a really minus effect. It may come up though. And then the main reason you play this deck is the absurdly broken trap card that is Tachyon Transmigration. So it's a counter trap and it says if you control a Galaxy Eyes monster, you can negate all the effects your opponent used during the chain this card was used, and if the negated cards are on the field, you shuffle them into the deck. So let's say you have your board, they activate Book of Moon targeting your Tachyon Dragon, then you chain Felgrand targeting your Tachyon Dragon to protect it, they chain Chalice, you chain this, and you negate both cards. I mean, your opponent has baited your 2 disruptions there, but it's basically an example to show you that this card can negate every card in the chain, which doesn't really come up that much, but it's something that comes up. I once negated 3 cards with this card, which was crazy. It's the main reason we play the deck going first. This card is also crazy going second with Tachyon Dragon, because if you control a Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon monster, you can activate this card from your hand. It's basically Blackbird Close. But it doesn't have to send for cost, it also negates spells and traps. This card is broken. But we discussed about the cards. What about our skill, which is the glue to this deck, the glue to what we do? The skill, you can see the text, I have copy pasted from the DLM website. It says that basically you can reveal on a level 8, add 1 level 4 or level 8 light monster to your hand. It can be only a dragon type monster because the skill restricts you. You can read the restrictions above. And you add, and then you set 1 level 8 monster in your hand onto your field. It doesn't have to be the level 8 you revealed. That's important. You can like search a monster and set the monster you searched, or set a monster that your opponent didn't know you have. And the second effect is you can return 1 face-up monster on your field to your hand and add 1 Tachyon Transmigration, which is the counter trap, from your deck, or 1 rank up magic Barian's Force from outside your deck to your hand. Both effects are crazy. Basically, common notes for the skill is your skill can search Cipher, Nebula, Half Moon Dragon. These are the 3 search targets, main search targets. It cannot search Spiral and Schwarzschild. The second effect can return to your hand a Spiral that will be banished if it left the field because it was summoned by its own effect. Skills get around these rules. They bypass these quote-unquote restrictions. It can also bounce back extra deck monsters. Normally cards that bounce back cards to the extra deck, like bounce back cards as cost, they cannot bounce extra deck cards, but this skill can, because it can, and you can search completely in a completely fine fashion. And finally, you can bounce cards that belong to your opponent, which makes a lot of things bad against Tachyon. Flying Sea, you can get it back. Oh, you can get it back. I don't care. What else? Ibli, you can get your Ibli back. You can get Ibli back. I'm gonna summon and I'm just gonna play completely fine. Basically, you can also even steal cards and bounce them back with the skill. And something extremely important is both effects are twice per duel. For a reason I have no idea why. And that comes up. It comes up a lot. I don't know what else to say. This skill is broken, but the cards are also broken. So, broken skill with good cards, tier 0 strategy. Success. Moving on to our extra deck. The cover card of this deck is obviously Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. In the beginning we were settling on 2 copies, now we are on 1. It's basically your turn 1 option against decks that they may play back row hate, because you can keep the counter trap at hand and it doesn't have to trade with an MST. It can basically trade with something much more impactful. Tachyon Dragon is also very good going second, because if you keep it on your field, you can activate the counter trap from your hand, which trades with disruption. So it's basically a card that beats a disruption and allows you to extend even more to an OTK push. It's also a rank 8 you can summon with 2 level 8 monsters, and it's also a Galaxy Eyes Xyz, which means you can stack on top the other Galaxy monsters, and that comes up in grand game situations because you may need another Galaxy Eyes Xyz to get into your package. And the final reason is the Neo Tachyon OTK, which doesn't really come up, but it's a nice option to have with your Barian's Force. You activate Barian's Force, you go to the Neo Galaxy Eyes, and you can attack 3 times, or even attack for enough damage with 4,500 attack. Speaking of Neo Galaxy Eyes, it's your other one-off in your extra deck. It's basically an OTK tool. That's the only way you use him most of the times. There are situations where you can make him turn 1 with Felgren and make him unaffected if you have the counter trap already in your hand. For example, Tenyi cannot beat that, and then you have the Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which plays through that. But that's basically its use. It's maybe the most useless monster in the extra deck, but it's good to have. Then we move on to what is known as the Galaxy package. It's basically Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon, full armor, Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon, and Galaxy Eyes Cipher Blade Dragon. You all know these cards' effects. You play 1 of each. They are basically, you can basically pop 2 cards with Full Armor and Cipher Blade. Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon has also a removal effect, but it usually comes at the cost of not being able to OTK, so in most cases he's used as a stepping stone. But still, his effect is also a good way of removal against cards that protect from destruction, for example like Dingirsu or Shiranui Shensaga or the Shiranui Link 3. Some notes about the Galaxy package for this deck specifically is that you can have a Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon and overlay Full Armor Photon on top of it, but just Full Armor Photon because Cipher Blade Dragon needs a rank 8 Galaxy Eyes Xyz monster. The second note is you can use Barian's Force on Tachyon Dragon, but also on Cipher Dragon and Full Armor Photon Dragon to summon the Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. And the third tip that is known, but I'm just gonna state it: Cipher Blade has a floating effect, but it floats to Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon only. This comes up against Shiranui because if they activate Goldsork and they banish the Solitaire, they can like pop your they can pop your Cipher Blade and you just float into the Cipher Dragon and your counter trap is still alive. They could theoretically pop Felgrand instead, but then that would be completely fine for you. These are the notes for the Galaxy package in this deck. Moving on to the Next extra deck option, it's obviously Dingirsu, the Orchestra of the Evening Star. This is a rank 8 deck. What did you expect, people? This card is the most broken card in the extra deck, and I'm not going to negotiate that. Its removal is insane. Even if Nebula, and even if you conflict with Nebula, you just summon Ding before you do Nebula. This card is very good. It's also not a dragon, which is important in the mirror match. And its protection is actually decent in grind game situation. Ding's protection is coming up a lot. But the main reason you play Ding is the removal effect, non-targeting, non-destruction, just send one card to the graveyard. It's an amazing card, an amazing tool. And in the beginning I remember I was like, why would you play Ding? It conflicts with Nebula. I was so wrong. This card is so good. Moving on to the other turn on option is the new Limit 1 monster, Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. Felgrand is the most versatile end board monster you can make against random decks. It's basically an infinite impermanence or a unaffected by card effects card, a forbidden lance, but for monster effects as well. It's not that good in the mirror match, I'm just gonna say that. There are better options in the mirror match. Normally we thought this mirror match was going second favored, but people have figured out that going first is better now because of new monsters that I will show you afterwards. But Felgrand has also another use, even in the mirror match. If you read Veiler and you would ideally summon something else, you're gonna go into Felgrand instead because they will try not to Veiler your Seyfert. If they can Veiler your Seyfert, but most likely they won't do it. But if you see Veiler delay, you go into Felgrand and to the counter trap and you're completely fine. Then we have basically the extra deck is 6-7 core cards, so now you have to think of what else can I play. These are the three main options we have. There are also like link monsters like Galaxy, Satellite Dragon and stuff, but these are the three main cards you should consider. Dragluon, Giant Trainer and Sanafont. Dragluon is basically here for the mirror match. You're going first with Dragluon. This card is crazy. You basically use the effect where your opponent cannot use dragon effects on the dragon effects, and this locks them out of the Galaxy package, it locks them out of Seyfert, it locks them out of Spiral's effect to fix the levels. It doesn't lock them off Spiral Dragon from the hand or grave and from Nebula Dragon's effects. They also can summon Schwarzschild and Moon Dragon freely, but they also cannot do Tachyon Dragon and Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon to OTK. So basically a board that consists of Dragluon plus a Galaxy Eyes Exist monster with the counter trap is nearly unbeatable in the mirror match. Basically, even if they're able to break the board, they won't be able to beat the follow-up most of the time. Your opponent needs like legit 5-card combo to beat this. It's really, really good. The second best choice in the mirror match is Giant Trainer because you draw 3. Giant Trainer, however, is the biggest Veiler magnet on the planet, but still, if you read Veiler, you're gonna go into Felgrand. And what's good for Giant Trainer is the KC Cup environment favors him because we have archive skills, and Tenyi, as well as Constellar, can play their archive skills with Misael or Mizar, however you want to call him, and they can bluff Tachyon. Now, are these decks good enough to justify playing them? Tenyi, I think, is okay. Constellar, I think, is not. And you can, so basically that's the idea. So if you summon Dragluon against these two, it's useless. But if you summon Giant Trainer, it's good in the mirror because you theoretically can draw into defensive decks like books, like effect veilers, like other stuff that we will discuss about later. And it also has value against these matchups. So the KC Cup may actually favor Giant Trainer. It's actually a really cool dilemma because Dragluon is guaranteed within the mirror, but you don't know what you're playing against in the KC. So keep that in mind. And the third option that I have seen that has fallen off is Sanafon. Sanafon just FTKs Mayakashi. That's it. There's nothing else to discuss. Mayakashi has fallen off quite a bit, so Sanafon is not really being played at the moment, but it's an option the deck has and it locks the graveyard. So keep that in mind. So now we're gonna move on to what the standard combo is for the deck as well as the Dragluon combo. The standard combo here is, I have a DB replay for you guys. So basically let's do a fast forward. Basically what you do is you need one level 8 plus Nebula or Spiral or Seifert. Depending on which one you have, you may need another 8 in your hand, but that's really easy to have. So you use your skill and reveal level 8. You add whatever you miss. Usually it's Seifert, grab Nebula, Spiral. Here we do the best situation where we send Spiral, grab Nebula. We use Spiral to make Safer level 8 and we summon Felgrant to the EMZ. We use the skill to return the level 8 to our hand to grab the counter trap, and we summon Nebula Dragon as well as Parsec the Interstellar Dragon. And we overlay to Tachyon Dragon, and that's how we end our turn. Our end board is one rank 8 of our choice and one counter trap with the Annexis monster, that's Galaxy Eyes. Here we chose Tachyon Dragon just because we wanted. As you saw, we can get 3 level 8s in this combo, so you can go for Giant Trainer, and Giant Trainer can draw you 3 cards, which theoretically should get you to Xyz access pretty easily. Also keep in mind, Seifert has another effect where it can banish itself and grab back a monster, and you can use that with Nebula. It's pretty simple. So that's the basic combo. Moving on, I'm going to show you the Dragluon combo, which is pretty much ideal. As you can see, okay, let me actually skip here. We just use a level 8 for the skill and we add Seifert. Here I'm just going to discuss something. You flip the monster first, and if you see delay here, you can know it's effect failure. It can be White Princess, of course, but yeah, okay, sure, pal. Normal summoning Starly Seifert here. If there is no delay, you do completely fine. If you see delay on the activation of Seifert, you know your opponent has DD Crow. So here, depending on your hand, you can either do the standard thing and add Nebula and bait the Crow with the Spiral Dragon because your hand can play through it, or you can add another Spiral Dragon and use your Spiral Dragon from your hand. So here you do Dragluon. Now you use your skill to search, because if you read Dragluon, it says that you need to control no other monster to do the effect. So you go for Dragluon, you declare the third effect against the mirror match, which is Dragon type monster your opponent controls cannot activate their effects until the end of your opponent's turn, and then you do your Nebula play. And in the mirror match specifically, you want to go for Cipher Dragon and for Cipher Blade and set the counter trap. Why is that? For starters, there are no MSTs in the mirror match, so you can set the counter trap without any fear. Secondly, Cipher Blade Dragon represents a threat, immediate threat, turn 3. Also, another reason is double mind con. Like, they can, if they mind con this, they cannot overlay on top of it. They can bounce it back with a skill, yes, but that may not always be what they can do. Also, if they have done something on your Dragluon, let's say you forgot that you didn't read the delay well, they can like Dragluon take but you can negate them, and you can negate that. And then if they mind con, they cannot overlay on top of your Cipher Blade. They can overlay on top of your other Galaxy monsters. So these are the combos. These are the standard combos that you do for Tachyon. They are pretty easy, and depending on the delays you see, you can alter them. It's a very simple deck going first. Now we go on into the spicy stuff. There is an FTK version of this deck. Who would think that this deck would have an FTK, since it's not that broken? Oh no. So what's the idea? The idea is that you want to deep draw into the 2 Vengeful Spirit and your Xian Spy. What do these cards do? The Vengeful Spirit is an equip which says if the monster this card is equipped to, it changes control, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half of its attack. And Xian Spy is a card that gives your opponent control of a monster you control. So what's the idea? You want to draw into these 2 cards by going into Giant Trainer with your tradings, with your allures, even into the voids. Unfortunately, you have to play it like this to get a reasonable consistency. As you can see here, I tried to play it with a counter trap. It kinda threw their percentages off, even changing 1 card. You even play 2 Nebula, as you can see in this build, but it's an 83 to 85% consistent FTK, which is really good. And it's weaker than actual Tachyon going second, but it's okay going second, which is frightening. Like, it's bad going second in the mirror, but it's good going second in general. It's okay going second. And basically what you do is you summon Neo Galaxy Eyes or Full Armor Photon Dragon, you equip 2 Vengeful Spirit and activate Xian Spy, giving it to your opponent. Both the spirits trigger, dealing the damage to your opponent, and he dies. The problem with this deck, of course, you may ask, oh, now we have hand traps. How do hand traps affect us? DD Crow isn't really that good against it. It's a good option, but not the best option. They can play around. Veiler on the Giant Trainer is a huge hit. Veiler basically stops the FTK most of the time. In general, Giant Trainer is a huge magnet, and this deck has to go for Giant Trainer. Unless they play the counter trap, but the builds I see currently don't, because they can't really fit decks. And you only play draw cards and 3 bricks and 10 of your engine. That's how I've seen. I've also seen cards like Magical Mallet and stuff, but that's the FTK. It's not bad. I don't think it's gonna be the best way to play the deck in the KC, but you know it exists. And the FTK being a thing is what, in my opinion, made one of the cards here good in the mirror match. So to finish this video, we will discuss what are the best decks against Tachyon, but specifically for the mirror match. The first option is Mind Control, tier 0 meta. What are good cards? The cards a tier 0 deck plays. I want those cards. I want to have those cards. Mind Control. Mind Control is amazing because if you steal a monster, you steal one of their Xyz monsters, you overlay on top of it by summoning your own Galaxy Eyes monster. It's amazing. It baits the counter trap, like it's a 1-for-1 trade with a counter trap. It's an amazing card to have, because if they don't counter it, because they have to use their counter trap on this. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Effect Veiler, in the beginning we thought this card was not good, and many people still think it's not good. However, since we have discovered FTK builds with deep drawing into equips and Xian Spy, and since Dragluon is a huge problem in the mirror match, Veiler has started gaining some popularity. I also think it's good even to Veiler Safer sometimes, or the Spiral Dragon is also a good Veiler target. It can stop them from getting an additional Xyz, which sometimes may be what keeps you off victory. Speaking of dealing with Xyz monsters, Book of Moon is really good against Tachyon. It baits the counter trap. The issue with Book is if they have only one monster and you want to flip it down to trade a counter trap, they will let the monster get flipped, of course, and then your sword shields cannot be summoned easily, and you may be like, oh, but you can I can summon the sword shields first and then use the book. Yes, but then they can do stuff on your they can chain things on your sword shields, and you can't really deal with that sometimes in specific hands. But nonetheless, book is very good going first. It can lead to clogging issues, even if Tachyon can tribute summon to unclog itself. Book is a good card in the mirror. It's also really good against Constellar. It's not the best against Tenyi, Mayakashi and Shiranui, but it's a really good card in the mirror, and I would advise having copies of it. The final two cards are going first, exclusive cards. Let's start with the obvious one, IDP. This deck can play IDP. It has no special summoning lock. Congrats, Konami, I guess. I don't think I have to say that this card is, when you go first with this card, this FTK is pretty much everything except Constellar, but it's crazy in the mirror because you remove the Spiral Dragon or the monster that they send with Cipher, because they will most likely have to do that, and then you remove that and you banish another monster. This card is amazingly good. I don't know why it's in the game. Okay, I know why it's in the game, it's not that crazy, but it's really good going first. Even going second, it can be okay, but you need to have it in combination with an already aggressive hand, and that is not always the case. And moving on to the final card, which you all know what it is, Mischief of the Gnomes. This card is an FTK against this deck. It stops you from using the skill. It can be used from the grave as well, so decks that summon Beatrice are using it. This card is insane against Tachyon, but it's good going first. Going second, it's a very weird story. It's not ideal. Basically, there have been builds with this deck where you basically play Giant Trainer and 2 to 3 copies of this and just went first and won, because we thought that, oh, going second is the best thing. But then we thought, oh, we can do Giant Trainer and draw into this for going first. And then we were like, oh, but you can just Dragluon plus counter trap, and you don't have to go second with 3 copies of Mischief of the Gnomes in your deck and drawing them. This card is crazy against Tachyon. Tachyon players, keep in mind that you will lose some games to Beatrice sending this card when you go second. That's why Effect Veiler is actually quite decent. Even if it doesn't stop Beatrice on its own, it can stop the ways to get into Beatrice. But overall, that's the video. Tachyon is a crazy deck. I hope Konami nerfs it somehow, but I hope they don't destroy it. It's really fun to play. It's also quite cheap for a good deck, and decks that can play going second are good to have in the game. We need more decks like this and less decks like Constellar, for example. But that's it for the video. Have a nice day, everybody.